And I'm going to go ahead and start broadcasting, which attendees will begin coming into the webinar.
Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know you're calling in from at least 10 different time zones, so please receive my heartfelt greeting and the version that matches your time of day. My name is Lisa Cerwillo. I am Associate Professor of Spanish and Faculty Director of Introductory Seminars in the Office of the Vice Provost of Undergraduate Education. I'm delighted to moderate today's conversation and introduce you to several programs that will deeply impact the first years of your education at Stanford and shape your intellectual life through graduation and beyond. In numerous ways, these programs, with their broad interdisciplinary scope, prepare you for the subsequent academic opportunities that you will seek out during your time at Stanford. True to our mission of providing a strong liberal arts education, you will find that you have a wide array of choice in our programs. Whichever course you take, you will engage in learning about large, complex questions while participating in research and the creation of new knowledge. These are the program in Writing and Rhetoric, Introductory Seminars, and Thinking Matters. When you arrive on campus, come find us in Sweet Hall on Meyer Green near the bookstore and the library. The Hume Center is on the Quad. Please know that our doors are almost always open and that we very much look forward to seeing you. During our time today, you will meet the faculty directors of these programs and students who have recently completed courses. But here, first, is a brief overview. The program in Writing and Rhetoric, also known as PWR or sometimes as POWER, designs and teaches courses that meet the writing and rhetoric requirement for undergraduates at Stanford, as well as intermediate and advanced writing and rhetoric classes. PWR courses engage students in rhetorical analysis of texts and research-based arguments. Students in PWR courses learn and practice time-test rhetorical principles to gain increasing control over the intellectual and stylistic elements of their writing. They learn to analyze the persuasive strategies of others and to apply those insights to their own writing. In a few minutes, you will meet Professor Adam Banks, the faculty director of the program in Writing and Rhetoric. The second program we are highlighting today are the Introductory Seminars. These are small courses in academic areas from across the university. In an intro sem, you, along with about 10 to 15 other first-year students, will study closely with the professor, exploring a topic of their research. These seminars are a wonderful opportunity to get to know the faculty right away, and also a route to learning about areas of knowledge that may be entirely new to you. This is an all-volunteer program. Many students choose to take intro sems, but they're not required. Similarly, faculty who teach them self-select, and they regularly report that intro sems are among their most rewarding classes. And I'll speak more in depth about intro sems later on. The third set of programs are under the umbrella of Thinking Matters. For more than 100 years, Stanford has offered liberal education courses designed especially for first-year students. Think courses emphasize critical inquiry and will offer you the opportunity to engage with a diverse range of topics and multiple approaches to answering real-world problems. There are about 20 different options for Thinking Matters next academic year. We also have more specialized parallel programs such as SLE. You will hear about these programs from Professor Dan Edelstein, the faculty director of Stanford Introductory Studies and professor of French. You undoubtedly have many questions about these programs, and we are delighted to answer them. Later in this hour, we will have a Q&A period. Please go ahead and submit questions as they arise. Use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. We will collect these questions and then respond to them during the Q&A period. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Professor Adam Banks, Sandra Jordan, Marvin Diogenes, Christina Alfano, and Richa Gupta. A bit about who these people are. You'll get to know them well. Adam Banks is the Faculty Director of PWR and Professor in the Graduate School of Education. Sandra Jordan is the Director of the Hume Center. Marvin Diogenes is Associate Vice Provost and Director of PWR. Christina Alfano is the Associate Director of PWR. And Richa is a junior from India and a writing tutor for Hume. She's declared Management Science and Engineering with a minor in creative writing. Adam?
Stanford class of 2024, welcome. I know that we're all scattered now instead of being live on campus, but I want you to know just how excited we are about the fact that you are joining us and how much we look forward to having you with us in the fall. I know that with respect to PWR, you might be thinking mostly about the courses themselves, the required courses, PWR1 and PWR2. But the first thing that I want to share with you is that Power as a program is dedicated to your overall development as critical thinkers, writers, and speakers, and we support you throughout the entire undergraduate experience. You'll hear a little bit more detail about some of that support when Dr. Jordan comes in to talk about the Hume Center for Writing and Speaking. Our required courses, as you've already heard, focus on research-based writing and oral communication of written research. PWR1 focuses on research-based writing through some of the rhetorical analysis strategies that you've already heard about. And then PWR2, which is a sophomore level course, is focused on oral communication of written research and offers some interesting opportunities to connect to other genres of visual and digital communication to respond to the complexity of various kinds of communication right now. Our overall goal is to make sure that we help students develop as strategic, ethical, and thoughtful communicators, yes, in the academic work that you're going to do throughout your undergraduate experience, but also in general, beyond that undergraduate experience. What will you find when you take our courses? What will you find when you interact with us? I want to say a little bit about what we call the Power commitment. Our commitment to you when you arrive, when you take our courses, especially in the courses, but when you interact with us in any other way. We are dedicated to small classes where you will get individual attention, where you will get written feedback and conferences with your instructor, not just on final assignments, but on every draft all the way through. We coach you throughout the entire process, and our commitment is that no matter how much experience or exposure one might have had to various kinds of academic writing before arriving in college, we all have room to grow and to push even further into the excellence that you've already been starting to craft and hone. Our courses are themed so that you can choose topics of inquiry that fit with your interests. And this often leads to research that you begin in your Power courses that you might choose to follow up on, or it might inform work you do in other parts of your academic journey. And as I've mentioned, we remain here and available to work with you throughout that experience. Along with the Hume Center for Writing and Speaking that you'll hear more about, we also have an oral communication program. We have the Stanford Storytelling Project, and we also work with departments and majors to be available in some of those departments as students move into other majors. So right now we're going to go ahead and shift and have Dr. Jordan talk about the Hume Center and what's available for you there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Banks. And to the class of 2024, it is my great pleasure to welcome you and to let you know that there is a wealth of support waiting to embrace you with open arms. At the Hume Center for Writing and Speaking, we provide free tutoring in writing and oral communication for all Stanford students. That's any type of writing, any type of oral communication, anywhere that you are in the process. So whether you are brainstorming or seeking to better understand an assignment description that you have received, if you have a draft in hand or a more polished draft that you want to review with one of our tutors, let's say you're applying for a scholarship, a fellowship application, or you're preparing to give a presentation in class, or you have coming up an interview and you want to review your presentation skills with someone. For any of your writing and oral communication needs, we have tutors who are eager and excited to support you along that journey. And we hope that you will think about us as a place that belongs to you and a place that is available to support you throughout your years at Stanford. Our tutors are undergraduate students, graduate students, and also professional lecturers in the program in Writing and Rhetoric, all especially equipped to support you in your communication needs. So we look forward to doing that. And in addition to one-on-one tutoring, and let me emphasize again, this is a free service, so we encourage you to take full advantage of it. We also offer a range of workshops in classes and directly through the Hume Center to support the needs of our entire community. We hold a number of writing boot camps for students who are working on honors theses, for graduate students working on dissertations, and master's students as well doing advanced writing. We really support the entire Stanford community. And so we look forward to you being a part of that. Currently, we are offering online tutoring to support our writers and our oral communicators wherever they may be. So please know that the Hume Center is available to you. And one other thing that I would note before turning it over to others in this segment, sometimes students think about tutoring as a service for those who are somehow ill-equipped for college study, and that's not our understanding or approach. We believe and understand that the best communicators do that in collaboration with other writers and speakers. So we hope that you will recognize the opportunity available to you to collaborate with others on your writing and your oral communication in progress, and we look forward to supporting you in that effort. I'd like to turn it over now to Charlotte Alfano. I'm sorry.
Did you mean me, Sandra?
I sure did mean you, Christine. Forgive me.
I think that Dr. Banks and Dr. Jordan have given you a great welcome, and just want to say welcome as well. And we are here to answer questions when you have them in Q&A, and I'm going to pass it on to next. I'm not sure who's next, sorry. Rika, did you want to say a welcome?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Richa. I'm a junior. I'm currently a writing tutor at Hume. I would just say that it's been a really valuable experience for myself. And I think that the best part is just being able to interact with so many students. And I would say that just to repeat what Sandra said, feel free to come to us regardless of the stage of whatever stage your paper is in. It could be really just brainstorming to a final draft. And that also goes for any applications that you may have, scholarship essays. So it's a really, really welcoming community, and we're always very ready to help you regardless of where you are with your paper.
Thank you, everyone. I would now like to introduce Professor Dan Edelstein, who will be joined by Corey Gaines, a junior from Maryland, double major in political science and African-American studies, as well as Jonathan Coe, a first-year student from the Bay Area, and Anthony Duarte, a sophomore from Southern California, declared sociology. They will speak to us about Thinking Matters, SLE, and ESF. Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Lisa. So my name is Dan Edelstein, and it's great to be with you, I've been cooped up also for the last 6 weeks. So I'm pretending in Oxford, which is what you can see behind me. But we're very much looking forward to gathering in person in Stanford, hopefully in the very near future. So as Lisa mentioned, Stanford has a long tradition of first-year requirements. And while these programs have changed and may still change over the coming years, the overarching goal of the first-year requirement has remained broadly the same. Through these first-year classes, we hope to introduce you to college-level reading and thinking. We hope to inspire intellectual curiosity. And more broadly, we hope to acquaint you with the idea of liberal education, which is both an educational practice, which is what you will be doing at Stanford by taking courses outside of your area of expertise, but it's also an educational philosophy in which education is really seen as preparation for life and not just as preparation for your first job. So the current first-year requirement is called Thinking Matters, and as you'll hear, there are multiple ways of satisfying it. You'll be receiving in May this Approaching Stanford brochure, which has the Thinking Matters catalog, and this will help you make a decision about how you want to fulfill your requirement. But basically, there are 4 choices. There is a set of individual Thinking Matters courses. That's the first option. There's a program called Education as Self-Fashioning, or ESF. There's a program called SLE, Structured Liberal Education, and last way is through another program called Italic. Those last 2 options, SLE and Italic, are both residential programs that are 3/4 long. And along with ESF, those 3 programs also satisfy the Write 1 requirement. So that's your writing requirement that Banks was just talking about. You'll be asked to rank these choices on the forms that you receive, and most students will be able to get one of their top choices in one of the quarters. We have seen an excess demand for ESF, and so there it does often end up just being a lottery of whether or not you get placed into an ESF. But you'll get to make your choices in June when you have to return the forms, and then you'll be informed of your assignments in August. So we thought that we'd have some of the students from these programs tell you a little bit more about them. So we'll start with Corey, who's going to speak about SLE.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Corey, as you know. First, hello and welcome, and excited for all of you to become my peers and friends, hopefully. But yes, SLE is, I think, it might be the most, I think people talk about it as if it's the most rigorous program out of the 3. I think it has the most units out of the 3, and essentially it's a program that you take for the whole first year, the 3 quarters. And I like to introduce it as a great books class because we read large texts that are important to the Western tradition of the thought and art and many different. It's widely interdisciplinary. We read a bunch of philosophy. We engage with art history. We touch on religious studies. We read a bunch of we read all of the holy books. So there's so much range, and it's basically an introduction to many different ways in which your Stanford career could take. I was really excited to read people I had never thought I'd engage with, like Plato, Aristotle, but also W.B. Du Bois and who else am I thinking about? Or Simone de Beauvoir. I don't know what is on the introductory material they give to y'all, but all of this is merged into your first year, and you read all of these texts and get to know the thinkers. I think that's really cool. You also interact with a bunch of faculty, because the way it's structured, you have seminars, you have the lectures from faculty from all over the campus. There's like a lot of complexity. You have a bunch of support through the sleep tutors, and also you have team tutors if you want more support than your sleep tutors. That we usually depend on our sleep tutors a lot. I don't know if I should say anything else. Or how much time do I have?
Yeah, that's probably great for now, Corey. Then maybe we can come back to you during the Q&A. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So let's hear next from Jonathan, who's going to say a little bit about ESF.
All right, took a second to get my mic on, but I'm Jonathan. I'm a first year, so I actually took ESF in my fall quarter just a couple months ago, and there's a reason why it's such a popular course. As you guys have heard, it satisfies both the power, so the writing one requirement, and also the think requirement. So it's kind of like 2 classes in one. But I really thought that it was an amazing class for me for a number of reasons. On the page, it'll say it's an introduction to the kind of liberal arts education that Stanford was kind of founded to provide for its students. And that's absolutely the case. But even more than that, I think it's one of the few classes where it's a very small class size. So it's maybe around 15 students. And I made some great friends because it was a small class size, and a lot of the class is based around discussion with your peers and with the profs. So it's a really great class to make friends and meet people in. I also had a really good time in both the discussion sections and the writing portions. So yeah, I will say, check your email frequently to see when the ESF application comes out. And yeah, please feel free to reach out if you have any more questions.
Great, thanks so much, Jonathan. Okay, we've got about 1 minute left. So Anthony, can you speak quickly about Think?
For sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony, and I will be talking a little bit about the Thinking Matters courses. So Thinking Matter is one course that you take just once your freshman year. You can take it any quarter, and there's about 8 courses that are offered every quarter, from wide ranges of biomedical research all the way to history. And it's really an opportunity for you to engage with a subject that either you are very interested in moving forward in your freshman year, or you have the unique opportunity to work in a topic that you have very little to no experience in. So I actually was in American Enemies, and in that class, I actually gained a breadth of knowledge, not only on art history, but as well as some aspects of critical race theory and analyzing films, which I would have never thought about before when I entered into the class. And so it's very much a unique opportunity to engage with a professor who's teaching the course, but also your Thinking Matter fellow who provides support throughout the rest of the quarter.
Great, thanks so much, Anthony. And I'll just close this segment by giving a quick shout out to Italic. So that's the arts-themed 3-quarter residential program that we mentioned early on. And you can read more about that in the Approaching Stanford brochure. So Lisa, hand it back to you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone. And I just want to remind all of our attendees to go ahead and send any questions that might be coming up via the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. I know we're going through a lot of material, and our students have a lot to share, and just let us know what it is you'd like to hear about. So right now I would like to quickly introduce Prashant Raghunathan, who will be joining me to speak about IntroSems. Prashant is a sophomore from India with wide-ranging interests and is deciding among several majors. So a bit about IntroSems. All too often, new students have the sense that they don't have much control over their education during their first years of study, or that their interaction with faculty will be limited to listening to a lecture in a large auditorium. I'm happy to tell you that this is not at all the case, as you've already heard, but especially in the case of IntroSems. We offer over 200 IntroSems every year for first and second year students, where you may study with faculty in courses focused on their research in every academic discipline imaginable, and I guarantee some that you haven't even yet imagined might exist. And these include those in the professional schools. That means schools that don't grant undergraduate degrees, for example, law or medicine. Introsems offer the in-depth focus that is more commonly available to students in their junior or senior years. But Introsems are designed for first and second year students. You do not have to know what you're going to major in to choose an Introsem. In fact, Introsems have no prerequisite, and by design are accessible to any admitted Stanford student. Faculty who teach Introsems are drawn by the opportunity to work closely with students, and you may find that you build a mentor-mentee relationship with your professor. Remember, a mentor is not only your major advisor, and that you will have several mentors during your undergraduate career. In order to sign up for an Introsem, you will be asked to rank your preferences and write a brief statement. I hasten to say this is not an application process. Every student who wants to take an Introsem will be able to do so. But faculty work to create a balanced course enrollment. So that's why we ask for you to select several. You will find more information about the process of signing up in the Approaching Stanford book that Dan has mentioned, and that will arrive in your mailbox next month. Also, from about mid-August, you will be able to have one-on-one conversations with your academic advisors so that they can guide you in your plans and help you talk through final decisions. So with that overview, I'd like to ask Prashant to step in and share his experience of Introsems.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Welcome, class of 2024. I'm excited to see you guys on campus sometime soon, hopefully. So Introsems have been some of the best classes I've taken so far at Stanford. I enjoy them so much. I've learned about medieval history, how to write humor. I had a class on reading gay autobiographies and learning about chemistry in the kitchen. And they have really been a defining experience of my Stanford undergraduate career, because when I came into Stanford, I never thought that I would like history or like English as much as I did. I grew up in India, and I mostly did science in high school, and I never got an opportunity to do other, or like find other passions in my life. Because the class sizes are small, you're able to foster a very close relationship with your professor, which is very fulfilling. And it's one of the best things about Stanford is that you are able to have class sizes that are small so that you can interact one-on-one with your professors during the class. So after Introsem, there's also an Introsem Plus, in which you're able to conduct a research with your professor. I don't know if I'm supposed to share about that. Okay, cool. So it was a great experience. I got to work with Professor Richard Zare, and I took his class called Chemistry in the Kitchen, and I got to do a quarter worth of research with him. And it really helped me to understand how undergraduate research works and how to like find opportunities and how to interact with professors. That's it for me. I would like to pass it back to Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you, Prashant. And I actually now would like to invite everyone back on screen. And I know that's a lot of faces for all of you attending to pay attention to. But what we're going to do is turn now to the Q&A portion of our session. And I want you to know that you can address the questions to any one of us. And we're all eager to help you navigate this important decision. So the one question I think we can start with that has come up a couple of times is there a limit on the number of Introsems you can take? And I will say, no, there's not. Take as many as you'd like. Prashant, could you speak a bit about how you chose and then any of the other students who participate in Introsems, how you made that decision? Prashant, can you turn on your mic? Sorry.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. I've taken a lot of Introsems. I've almost taken like 5 intro sems so far. And it's been really amazing. I couldn't take intro sem this quarter because I might be getting back on my major, which I need to like complete within 4 years. But yeah, I would highly recommend students to apply to as many intro sems as possible and take them.
Great, thank you. Dr. Jordan, could you speak a bit about the Hume Center? There's a noted interest in the hours, the availability, and I know they'll get most of this information later on, but just a bit about accessibility, please.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So during the regular academic year when we're on campus, the Hume Center is available 6 days a week. That's Sundays from 1 to 7:30 p.m., Mondays to Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., and on Fridays from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. We provide drop-in writing appointments, which means drop-in appointments, which means you don't, or drop-in tutoring, which means you don't need an appointment. And then also appointment-based tutoring that you would sign up for online. Our drop-in tutoring appointments typically run between 20 and 30 minutes. And then appointment-based tutoring is 50-minute appointments, and that includes time for collaborating with your tutor, and then also reflecting on the session that you've just had and how you will move your writing forward. Were there other questions?
Thank you. No, thank you so much for that. So I now have a two-part question from the attendees about ESF. So Dan, could you speak a bit about the opportunity for ESF? Is it application? Is it lottery? How is it ranked? Is it first come, first served? Just very briefly. And then secondly, Jonathan, could you speak about how manageable you found ESF when balancing your other classes during the first year? Thank you.
Sure. So typically it is lottery based for the most popular ESF classes. So it's not a first come, first serve process. And I will say it really depends on the class you sign up for. There's not even really a pattern necessarily to which ones are most popular, but it's certainly worth trying, and then you can also keep trying. If you don't get in right away, if anybody were to drop the class, then that's another way to get in.
Yeah, and responding to the question asking about how manageable the ESF class is, I would urge you to note that it provides credit for both Power and Think because it is like a 7-unit class, right? So while a single Power class is 5 units, and I believe a single Think class is either 3 or 4 units, the ESF class is, right, I'm being told the Think classes are 4 units. The ESF class is 7 units. So it'll be one of the most high unit classes. And as such, you do spend a lot of time in class. So there's some hours of discussion per week, and then also like a writing section, which is like the Power equivalent, like per week. So it is a lot of time spent in class per week, but I would say that it's definitely manageable as long as you're very kind of attentive with your readings and with like the essay deadlines. I would say, however, that it's all work that you're going to have to do eventually because you have to take Power and you have to take Think. So if you take ESF, like the work you're doing is all work you'll have to do one way or another. So yeah.
Great, thank you. This is a question for Corey. Corey, could you speak a bit more about how SLE fit into your overall first year balance of courses? What was the time commitment? And did taking so many courses in SLE impact your ability to participate in other courses or in clubs? So it's a multi-segmented question.
Many points to that question. I think Jonathan ended on a really good point that you're gonna need these waves, your Think, your Power. Like you're gonna need these requirements eventually. And I think I never thought about it like that way. So you're gonna so that's a part of the time commitment. But I think like it wasn't not manageable at all. In the fall I took 2 classes, particularly rigorous ones. I think in the first quarter with SLE. It was 16 units. In the winter, I took 16 units again, but it was more classes. I think I had like 5 classes that added up to 16, which was fun. It's all about like whether, like how you can schedule it out. And I was also in several clubs in the fall, especially, and narrowed it down. Like I was in like 3 clubs in the fall, and like narrowed it down a bit later on. But then started to do research on campus, like as a job. So I like was able to, yeah, definitely manage. And many people have a lot of things. A lot of the SLE students, my peers and dear friends, who I managed to like juggle SLE with other things. And I doubt it's definitely manageable. And it's probably not a stretch, especially if, yeah, you just like calendar it out and do things that you would be doing anyway. Yeah.
Thank you, Corey. And clubs, did you feel like you were able to balance that?
Yeah, I was really active in the clubs I was in. Like in the Black Student Union, for example, I was an intern or like a member, and then like I did a whole lot of work, especially in my frost year, to like build bonds with my peers, but also like it helped me like gain credibility in the org, and I like now am a co-president of this org. So it's like kind of funny to talk about this like now, like 2 years later. But you definitely have time. You just got to go and do it. Like SLE is not gonna keep you from doing the things you want to do, and it's like it's not gonna be too much work, and it's not gonna be like insular, like you just want to hang out with your SLE friends. Like you had like the Stanford here, like oyster, you know.
Great, thank you so much. I want to address a bit about process, because I know that there's some concern about process and you have many decisions to be making in the coming weeks and months, but I want to reassure you, don't worry at this point about the nuts and bolts. We have a full process to make sure that you'll get all the information. So as I think it was Jonathan who said, keep checking your Stanford email, or your email and then your Stanford email. But briefly, for the Thinking Matters requirement, full course descriptions will arrive in a printed guide called Approaching Stanford in May. And then you'll be asked to choose how to fulfill the Thinking Matters requirement in early June. You'll receive your placement in August, but it will be possible for you to change it after discussion with your academic advisor. For PWR and Introductory Seminars, the courses are still in development right now, but you'll be able to see all of the offerings by August 1st. Then we'll give you full details on how to rank your preferences in an email on August 1st. And each program will answer questions all month long. You will know any autumn placements before you are able to enroll in other courses. And I just want to note that these 3 sets of courses are the only classes at Stanford where enrollment is centrally controlled like this. For all other courses, you will generally self-enroll. Again, so there'll be more information coming. This is just a high-level overview, but fear not. So I want to turn now to a specific question to Dan. Could you explain a bit about Italic? Does one need to be artistically inclined, talented, or have any other skills in order to select Italic?
So there's no prerequisites. You don't have to already be a concert pianist or a performing artist. I think that there is obviously, it's preferable that you be inclined towards the arts. So having interest is probably a good idea, but it also is fine if your interest is really more a curiosity, something you want to explore. So it's a more recent program. SLE has been around for a long time. It was modeled on SLE and sort of having this 3/4 arc, being residential. It's in Stern and Burbank dorm. It's a bit smaller. It's only 45 students. But it has this mix of arts practice. So there will be workshops in all sorts of different genres and media. And there's also an element of art theory and art history. So there's a combination of lectures, sections, readings, but then also field trips and hands-on involvement that go into Italic.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Dr. Jordan and Richa to speak a bit about what's the process of becoming a tutor.
Yeah, I could go. So I applied to be a tutor my sophomore year. So there was an application, and after that there was an interview. And after all the tutors are selected, there is a training that we all go through in spring quarter, and then we start the very next year. So we have a solid like 10 weeks of training. So that's kind of how we go about it. Xandra, would you have anything else to say?
Sure, thanks for sharing that, Richa. So what I would add to that explanation toward the end of your first year, so as a frosh, really it would be in the winter quarter when we accept applications for tutors. And a part of that process is getting a recommendation from one of your professors. There are some short questions to respond to in an essay format. You would submit a resume, a writing sample, and then we review all of the applications and invite candidates for interviews. And as Richa shared, there is the tutor training seminar that occurs in the spring. So we are always looking for candidates for writing and oral communication tutors. So please do reach out to us. And also note that there is a tutor recruitment video on the Hume Center website that we encourage you to take a look at.
Thank you. So I wanted to, excuse me, get to a question a bit about advising and maybe clarify that, excuse me, about transfer credits or placing out of classes. So introsems are electives, and introsems, like all of these programs we're discussing, are uniquely designed for the Stanford experience. Everyone needs to fulfill the Thinking Matters requirement at Stanford. It's uncommon but not impossible to transfer a class that fulfills the Power 1 requirement. But for other classes, other than the ones we're talking about today, you will get more information on AP and transfer credit from Approaching Stanford, and you'll start seeing that in May. And you will also get lots of information from Advising all summer. So we're not really going to address that here. I want to now turn to the question that has arisen about SLE and italic. Dan, do you have any sense of how SLE or italic will work given that teaching on campus is uncertain for the fall?
Yeah, so they actually have already been providing instruction remotely. So both SLE and italic, like the rest of Stanford, went online in spring quarter. And that's actually really helpful in case we have to continue staying online for the fall. So I'll say two things. One is that the kind of discussion-based learning that is central to both SLE and italic, you can actually do that fairly well online. So in a seminar setting, you can have everybody's face on the screen and have conversations, and it's I almost think that seminars translate a little bit better than large lectures in this respect. The other thing I'll say is that for, in both cases, the hope is that eventually everyone will be back on campus, so you can sort of see this as, a way to get to know your future classmates, but you will actually at some point be able to talk to them face to face. The second thing with italic is that probably there will be some rearranging of the syllabus so that all of the art practice parts will still take place, simply they will be later in the year once we're all back on campus. But it will still be a very similar program.
Thank you. Christine, would you be able to discuss the 1-unit Power 1 workshop for a bit, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So in Power, we offer actually 2 companion courses for our first year writing course, Power 1. There is the Power 1 workshop, and that is for any writer who feels like while taking their Power 1 course, they would like the added opportunity for 90 minutes a week to meet with other students and also a power lecturer to do additional work around analyzing assignments, developing strong academic discourse, learning research strategies, and basically extra time to work on their assignments with guidance. And there's a lot of group work and active learning involved in the workshop. And what's really nice about it is we have, you know, power courses have all different themes. So you might be in a power course where the theme is food, or you might be in a power course where the theme is social activism. But when you come together in the workshop, you're very focused just on working with others across sections to develop your skills. And then we have a second companion course that's also 1 unit on the same model, which is for students who have grown up speaking more than one language. This is not necessarily a course where you learn to speak English at all. It just recognizes that students who are multilingual, as we call them, who speak multiple languages, might come to writing and speaking and communication assignments with a richer experience that would benefit from that sort of focus in a companion course. So they do much the same as the workshop, working on research strategies, developing a strong argument, learning to understand academic conventions, and also analyzing assignments and other texts. So those are our 2 companion courses, and they've been very successful so far, and we welcome students to apply for them.
Thank you. So I want to address a question about introsems and how they might relate to other requirements. So indeed, beyond the first-year requirement, Stanford has requirements, especially the WAYS requirement. So many of the introsems satisfy WAYS requirements. Also, many departments will count introsems towards a major and a minor should you end up selecting that area of study. But I would like to invite any and all of the students to speak a bit about how, in your experience, ESF, Think, and introsems felt different from each other. As a student, what were some of the key differences? So just jump in if you feel inspired.
I can speak on that a little bit. So I was in an intro sem as well as I did my Thinking Matters course as well. Thinking Matters is a lecture style class. So I had kind of a large group of students in a lecture that met twice a week, as well as a section component. And that section component was about 10 of us who worked closely with a Thinking Matters fellow to really engage and analyze the types of work that we were trying to do in the class. Whereas an intro sem, which is more elective based, is designed so that we can work with a faculty representative, with a professor, and in smaller groups. So specifically for me, I took ethics, morality, and markets, and there was 10 students, 1 professor who works at the sociology department, and we were really able to foster that connection and really know who our students were in that intro sem.
Thank you, Anthony. Jonathan or Richa? Prashant?
Well, to be honest, due to like personal scheduling, like just the way my scheduling worked out, I haven't actually taken any intro sems, but I can speak to ESF and my experience in that class. I thought that it was a really great way to come into Stanford as one of the first classes I took. It forced me to kind of be really deliberate about the choices that I made through my education. I think that especially coming to a school like Stanford, it can be very easy to kind of fall into a track and just kind of go with the flow. And I think that ESF is one of those classes that forces you to think critically about what exactly your education is providing for yourself outside of your job opportunities and more about your personal growth, especially.
Thank you. So I have another question for the students, and it builds a bit on some of what Corey explained earlier on about managing his time. And I'd like to ask each of you, could you speak a bit about what your first quarter at Stanford looked like? How many units did you take? And how many classes was that? Did it feel balanced?
I could go. When I started, I got a lot of advice about not overloading with classes. So I did take that to heart. I took about 15 units, and that was 3 classes. I don't remember my exact classes, but Econ 1, an Intro Sem, which I took for 5 units, and Power, and then a 1 unit. I think that was a pretty balanced class because at the time I wasn't too sure about my major either. So taking an Intro Sem and Power seemed like a good way to kind of take some of the more general classes. But yeah, I am glad that I didn't overload onto me classes because just adjusting to campus life was quite the challenge already.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh, sorry. I took 3 classes my freshman quarter, and it added up to 16 units. I took ESF, which counts for 2 classes, so it was a 7-unit class. And then I took 2 other introductory classes. I took Symbolic Systems 101, which was the Introduction to the Symbolic Systems major, as well as CS 106B, which is one of the introductory CS classes. And to be honest, I thought it was a pretty well-balanced schedule. I do kind of wish I had a little more time, but I would say I had friends who took like 20 units their first quarter, and they didn't really have a good time. So I would definitely recommend against doing that. But that said, please do be kind to yourself the first quarter. It is a lot to transition to, even if you've kind of been to Stanford before. Adjusting to college is a big transition to make, even if you don't think it will be.
Thank you. Corey?
I also took 16 units, and it was 3 CS 106A, which is introductory computer science class as well, and a math class that's also introductory, I expect the second one in a sequence. And it was a lot. It was mostly a lot because I wasn't used to computer science, and that literally was my most rigorous class and most difficult class. So that be wary of what you've been trained in, and talk to upperclassmen and stuff. I think that's a good advice for any class schedule or anything. But yeah, it's definitely manageable, and it's just hard getting to Stanford and getting used to not being home, being far from home, whatever the circumstance is. Yeah, there's a big adjustment process beyond the actual classes.
Thank you. Thank you. Prashant and then Anthony. But you're muted yet, sorry.
I took 15 units too. My first quarter, I took Econ 1, Think and Power. And it was a bit for my first quarter because there was definitely trying to adjust to a new place. I'd moved from a totally different country. So I'd be wary of taking more than 15 units in your first quarter. Because I know friends too who took 18 or 19 units and they did not like that quarter. And especially for this time, because it'll probably be different than what I experienced. Going for a lower unit would be the move.
Thank you.
So
good, you are there. Great, thanks.
So I took 16 units in the fall, basically just taking very large lecture classes. I was in Intro to Psychology, Language as a Political Tool, and then I was in my Power class, and then I took 1 unit just to see about symbolic systems because I had never heard of the major before, and I really just wanted to see what it was about. So I do recommend taking a lower unit count, especially adjust to the current climate, the current situation of how online learning, if we do end up moving to online learning, how that might affect you.
Thank you. I know there's been some concern about research and how one learns how to do research. So I'm going to address that very briefly to say that, yes, this happens in Intro Sems, but it actually happens in all of these classes. And there is no research without writing. There is no research without communication of knowledge. So I think that the programs that we're describing really come together maybe like puzzle pieces or interlocking pieces. And I don't think we can pull out one strand from them all. And so to say the whole package together will teach you research. And it is a skill, it's a way of life, it's an experience that becomes who you are here on out. I then want to ask Corey and maybe others who have experience from friends who participated in the residential programs. What house were you in? Should our newly arriving students be worried about being isolated from the rest of campus?
I lived in East Low, which is the east part of Florence Moore Hall, and Faison was the dorm, because East Low is the complex. And honestly, I have many dear friends who are from SLE and from Faison specifically because we had a really tight dorm community. And I don't think it was like insular, or like you get isolated because you're like all SLE kids and like haha, which is like a stereotype. That's why I'm joking like that. But I have I have many friends from different parts of campus. Because it just happens from, you take different classes and you like, and like the clubs and stuff, it's just gonna happen. But I like love my fellow 5 and 8s like to like the bottom like pits of my heart, and I need to emphasize that like I cherish those people in that dorm very much from my freshman year. But you make other friends, and I also have dear friends who I deeply care for in that way. From other places around campus.
Thank you. So I know I asked everyone to speak, but we're coming out of running out of time, and I wanted to first of all say that this has been a lot of information. The recording will be available on the admit.stanford.edu site. We'll also send it to all of you who attended. But in the end, this concludes today's session. I speak for everyone when I say how much we are looking forward to meeting you and learning with you next term. Each of you will chart a unique path of intellectual inquiry here at Stanford, and we are truly eager to see where the experience of our programs takes you. Please watch for the approaching Stanford book that will arrive next month. You can also visit undergrad.stanford.edu and look for us under the Programs tab. And of course, once you are on campus, find us in Sweet Hall. Thank you and goodbye.